The Xbox One was Microsoft's system in the eighth generation, and well, it struggled out of the gate pretty quickly with the way it was announced and with its whole emphasis on TV over video games, or not just TV, but just basically other multimedia services. And it really put a damper on the Xbox One's original launch lineup. And then several years into its lifetime, eventually, it's picked up a little bit of steam, but the damage was already done. And really, I mean, Xbox, I feel like it hasn't really recovered since then. But, there was still some pretty cool stuff, though, about the Xbox One and some of the games that came out for it. Although, admittedly, there wasn't a whole lot of exclusives that I can select from this that I feel were, worthy of being in the top 10 for me personally. But so what I'm doing here, it's kind of like what I did with the Xbox 360, only probably even more so. So I picked several of the games that are on here are multi-platform games, so you can play them somewhere else. But I'm just including them on here as basically I'm sort of using the Xbox as like, at least in my countdowns, right? More so of a countdown for just games in this generation that were multi-plat and weren't exclusive anywhere else. And so, but I do have just a handful, right, though, and all that were only playable on the Xbox when it comes to consoles at this time. As otherwise, it's one of the more weaker systems out there in terms of like exclusivities. Although I will say though that for me personally, I did enjoy playing certain kind of games more on the Xbox. So for example, like first person shooters and also racing games. So if it was one of those kind of games that was multi-platform, I generally prefer to get them on the Xbox One. But yeah, other than that though, there wasn't just a whole lot. I really, I think only have like, let me see here. I think it's two games. Yeah, I think it's only like two games that I have on here that were, no, well, three games. Three games that were Xbox exclusive only, and if we're not looking at PC, so kind of goes to show, right? I mean, there just wasn't a whole lot for it, but either way, though, some of the other games that I have listed here are really excellent too, as well, whether you play them on the Xbox or anywhere else. And so, I wanted to run down these top 10 games here, but let me know, was there something on the Xbox One though that you really liked, except for your Forza games or Gears of War or Halos? Anything else out there? Let me know in the comments below. Coming in at number 10, I have Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This game was exclusive to the Xbox for a period of time, but then eventually got ported over to the PlayStation and I believe PC. But this is a very unique game, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. So this game was developed by Ninja Theory, who they've done a lot of interesting games in the past that I've been a fan of. So, for example, like Heavenly Sword and Enslaved, and let's see, I know it gets criticized a lot, but the DMC game that they did, I feel like was pretty good too as well. But this game, so you play as Senua here, and so this is sort of like a game based in Norse mythology, and it's an interesting concept because it takes place in this kind of Viking world, where, I mean, ultimately the gameplay, it's a little light on puzzles and a little light on combat. I mean, what's there is pretty good, but the game is somewhat short, and so I guess you can say it's kind of considered like an indie game, but it's the graphics are actually pretty impressive on it, but the overall purpose of this game, I guess, is to really explore mental health. And I thought that was interesting, just given the setting and all, that they would choose a game like this to explore this on. But basically, as you're playing the game, you're hearing like a lot of voices, right? And so what it is, it's sort of like to mimic what someone goes through that has, oh, let's see. I know that they mention it at in the making of this game. It's actually really interesting. I recommend you watch that. But it's like a schizophrenia, I think, where they're just hearing voices, and really, and it even tells you at the beginning of the game, right, that it's best experienced using headphones because you hear like all these voices all over the place, kind of giving you the sensation of what it could be like, right, for someone that suffers from something like that. And so it's an interesting concept, and it's definitely it's very unique. It seems like kind of two weird things to combine, like a Viking setting with this kind of stuff, but strangely it works somehow. And even though, again, like the gameplay is a little light on, I mean, the combat is serviceable enough. It can get kind of fun sometimes, but a little repetitive, and the puzzles are kind of a little obscure at times and all, but they were still kind of fun. But it's just the overall journey that you take on this, and it's not a very long one though, but It's very unique. Definitely one of the more unique experiences you'll play on the eighth generation of systems, and I highly recommend you check it out. And like I said, graphically, it's pretty nice looking too, as well, given the budget that they were given. Like the facial expressions on it are really top notch. But yeah, definitely, I would say definitely worth a look though. But coming in at my number nine, I have Killer Instinct. So this game was a launch game that came out on the Xbox One, and originally came out like sort of like let's see, was it free to play? Or I just know that they eventually kept adding like characters and different modes and all to it. But eventually, you have the game that you have now, that we have out now, right? Which is pretty much feels like a full game now. But it's Killer Instinct, only this time it was developed by Double Helix and Iron Galaxy. I think Rare, some of the original Rare creators had a hand in it also. But now it's full 3D polygons, obviously, right? And I mean, the graphics are really intense in this game, and the particle effects and all are truly insane, and definitely is a looker, right? I mean, when you uh, turn this game on, it definitely the visuals definitely strike out at you, and just a really cool character design and all, and has the classic Killer Instinct gameplay where it's definitely all about combos and hitting together stringers that link to other moves that eventually you can pull out like these crazy multi-hit combos. And only something about this one though that I feel like it streamlines it a little bit more than the previous entries. I don't know what it is, but for some reason I feel like I can pull off like at least like double digit combos, right? More so than I could in the original Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct Gold games. But a lot of fun, a rockin' soundtrack too. I mean, this is definitely a game that I like to play every now and then if I just want to get a rush, right? And it's pretty amazing for that. And yeah, Killer Instinct, I mean, cool game. And yeah, as far as I know, it only stayed on the Xbox, because I don't think it came out on PC. I could be wrong on that, but as far as I know, the Xbox was the only place to play it. And definitely a cool fighting game. But at number 8, I have Halo 5 Guardians. So Halo kind of started, it wasn't quite the juggernaut that it was in previous generations. And I mean, this one here, it's not bad. I mean, it's a decent first person shooter. The emphasis is not so much on Master Chief as much though. And I mean, the graphics look really nice. The gameplay shooting, the mechanics and all work really well. But for me, something about like the weapon choices that you have, the enemy designs, and just the enemies themselves, like their AI and all. I don't know. Something about it just feels off, where it doesn't quite feel like the best of what Halo's done before. Not even as good as, for me, Halo 4, which was also done by 343 Studios. Because you see, the first few Halo games, Bungie did them, and then after that, they switched it over to this 343 Studios. But not a bad game for sure, and it definitely has some cool moments. But the overall premise of the story, where these, Master Chief and this other guy, have like a rivalry, and then when they finally meet and all that, it just felt a little lackluster and ultimately a little unmemorable. And so for that, definitely not quite in the league of like previous Halo games. But if we're talking about whatever few exclusives on the Xbox had, I mean, it would definitely be worthy of a top 10 on this list here. But well, it's not, to say like it doesn't earn it or anything. It's just, it is a bit like lackluster given the, pedigree of what the series has been in the past before. But still a pretty good play though. If you're into the previous Halo games, and, I would say it's definitely worth playing. But coming in at number 7, I have Gears of War 4. Pretty much everything I said about Halo 5 Guardians, you can almost apply it to this one here. So this is the next sequel from the Gears of War series, right? That were hugely popular on the Xbox 360. Only now we're jumping ahead several years, and you play Marcus Phoenix's son, along with other young characters. And while they're cool enough and all, it's just they just don't have the overall appeal, right, that the original cast had with, Baird, Cole, Dom, and Marcus Phoenix. But they're still fun though, for what it is. And eventually, you do meet up with some of the legacy characters. The graphics are pretty stunning in it though, so definitely won't take that away from it. It's truly a looker of a game, and has some cool set piece moments and all. But even then, though, even though it looks really nice, and while it does have some cool set piece moments, it's not quite as memorable as the original trilogy. And I don't know, sometimes I have a hard time pointing my finger on what exactly it is about this one right now that doesn't quite feel as good. Now, this one is made by, where the previous ones were made by, let's see, what was it? Epic Games, I believe. Yeah, Epic Games, right? The first ones. But these are being done here by the Coalition, and well, not bad, like I said, and definitely a showpiece for the Xbox One as far as what it could do with graphics. A bit of a letdown, though, just because, again, of how good the previous Gears of War games were. But still worth playing, though, I would say. And I haven't really played all the way through Part 5, so that one might be a bit better. I just don't know it as well. But for what it is, though, this one's, it's not bad. It's worth a playthrough, I would say. But coming in at number 6, I have Ori and the Blind Forest. I haven't beaten this game, but I just really, just this intro right here that you're seeing, it's truly, it's very almost tragic, and but definitely sets a mood for the game, right? And ultimately, it's like a Metroidvania, but it's a bit the action can get pretty intense on it at times, and just a stunning looking 2D game. This game looks like what I thought 2D games were going to look like in the future. It's one of the few games that I can say that about, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous, and definitely one of the prettier games out there. And it controls really smooth. Ori, it's pretty fun to control, and again, the level designs are excellent on it. Definitely gives you a sense of that Metroidvania gameplay that, at least for me personally, I really enjoy. And yeah, definitely one of the better ones out there for Metroidvanias. This and its sequel, Will of the Wisp, I'm sure is really good. I just haven't played that one yet. But this one here, truly stunning. It hooks you from the start, and you're in for a really, one of the most beautiful games out there. I really appreciate the art style to this game. And yeah, definitely one that was exclusive to the Xbox for a bit, eventually got ported over to other systems, but yeah, just an amazing game and definitely worth your time. And yeah, I really need to go back and finish this game. But yeah, really great game though. But excuse me. But at my number 5, I have Titanfall 2, and so the first one was an Xbox exclusive, at least on console. But that one, from my understanding, was more just of a multiplayer game of some sort. Titanfall 2, though, was made into a first-person shooter with, it does have some multiplayer elements to it. But it was, from my understanding, so it's made from Respawn, I believe, and they're made up of like Infinity Ward developers, which they've done the Call of Duty games. But you could, I think that's correct, and that's you definitely feel their influence though, because in the control scheme itself, it almost controls like the way Call of Duty games do, which is definitely not a bad thing. Only now we're in this sort of futuristic setting where you ride on these big old robots, and they're really fun to control, and the game looks absolutely stunning. It is such an awesome first-person shooter game, and one that just kind of went under the radar for a lot of people. But the people that did play it, though, have a lot of fond memories of it, as it's just truly a fun game. It's quite the looker, cool action. There's this one level in it too, also, that I'll just say you kind of switch between. Let's just say you kind of switch between time, I believe is what happens. Time or different realities, I think is what I recall. And the way it does it pretty seamless, and all just made for a truly epic gameplay experience. And there's a reason why this game is a fan favorite, because it is so original, a lot of fun, really well polished, and definitely one of the best first-person shooters you can play on the 8th generation. And this one, again, it was a multi-platform game, but definitely has a good home on the Xbox One. And also I feel like just one of the better looking games of this generation as well too. Definitely don't sleep on this game if you haven't played it for any reason. It's really that good. But at my number 4, I have Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. So this game was a multi-platform game, but Metal Gear Solid 5, while it's different than the previous Metal Gear Solid games, and in that sense was a bit of a letdown for me personally. The reason I say that is because Metal Gear 1, 2, 3, and 4 had these crazy, really in-depth stories, right? That Love him or hate him, it's kind of what they were known for. And me personally, I fall definitely more into the love category on these games. And the gameplay was great and all on those, right? But I also really wanted to play Metal Gear Solid games because of, again, I know I'm gonna get this really crazy story. Metal Gear Solid 5 kind of flips that. And there's not the story that's there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It feels like it's not very fleshed out. And sure enough, this game had a trouble development, and so it definitely has a feeling like it wasn't finished. There's a bit of a drama that happened with Hideo Kojima and Konami, and ultimately it sounds like because something to do with that, he wasn't able to completely finish this game. What you get in this game, though, is some of the best open world gameplay that's out there, though. And I mean, I really hold if I'm talking about just the open world gameplay, I really hold The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild to high esteem. This one is not too far behind it, though. And what I love about it is that it gives you this big old sandbox where you really just have to use your creativity on how you're going to solve said mission, right? Because there's not just one way to do it. And that's some of the most fun you'll ever have in a video game. I mean, going into a base, rescuing someone, trying to rush out, whether you're stealing a Jeep or putting them on your horse or whatever, right? And calling the helicopter to, take you out, all while you're listening to David, when the helicopter comes down and you're listening to David Bowie's The Man Who Stole the World. It's truly an experience like none other, and definitely one of the coolest, like I said, not only open world games, but stealth games out there. And it looks really well too, also running on I believe they call it the Fox engine. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. Definitely some of the most fun I had in this generation. And while the story definitely suffers and where it's not as memorable as the previous Metal Gear Solid games, you get definitely the best playing Metal Gear Solid game, as it's really a lot of fun. And just finding all these different ways to beat these missions and all, I just had so much fun playing this game. And I remember I kept playing it over and over back in the day and all, and it was just a lot of fun. Oh, and just a little tidbit on this one here: make sure you play this game and go back to your base on the day of your birthday. If you have your birthday, set up on this, within your system settings, you'll get a cool little surprise. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, excellent game. But then coming in at my number 3, I have Resident Evil 7. So Resident Evil 7, I really wanted to put like Resident Evil 2, the remake, which, I mean, that's an excellent game, and I would probably even actually prefer it over this one. But I was trying to keep my list as where it has the original games as much as possible, right? Even if they're remakes that are drastically different from its previous ones. And so for that reason there, I'll add Resident Evil 7 on this. So I guess kind of think of this like, yeah, it's my top 10, but I try to spread the love, though, right, amongst other games in the series, or that certain games are represented, because I feel like they're good representation of what either the system was or the console itself. But Resident Evil 7, so this is another multi-platform game, but definitely played well on the Xbox One. And this time you're in this first-person perspective now, and because of that, I mean, and then just the really gritty graphics, and there's a lot of grotesque things that you can see in this game, like when you open up a fridge and you see all this like disgusting food there and all, and the graphics running on the Resident Evil engine looks really incredible, and it's very visceral, goes back to its horror roots, and it almost feels like one of those grindhouse horror films. And it's the story to it is typical Capcom stuff, right? But just I'm just so glad that they went back into this more old school horror, as I feel like sometimes with Resident Evil games, I get it that you have to have some action and all that, right? But I just feel like they're best when they're lean more toward the horror side instead of the action side, and that's what I feel this one did. The last stretch of the game, like any Resident Evil game, right, and all, it amps up the action on it and all, but I feel like the majority of the game, though, did really well, in keeping it kind of more on the creepy side. And yeah, definitely a very cool game, and feels a lot like the first Resident Evil game in some ways too, only with the horror factor really cranked up to it. This game can be scary. But yeah, just an excellent game, really well looking game, and a lot of fun, and yeah, can get pretty gory at times, but that's kind of the point, right? My main knock, though, that I have with this one, though, is that it's is the main character, Ethan. So, I mean, I kind of like it that he doesn't have much of a personality, because that way you kind of insert yourself into the game, so to speak, almost like a silent protagonist or or a character that you create on your own, but he does have a bit of a personality, right? And it's a bit bland though. So again, it's not a big deal, but just something about the game though that bugged me just a bit. But still, excellent game though. But at my number 2 spot though, I have Red Dead Redemption 2. So also a multi-platform game, but definitely played really well on the Xbox One. And actually, at the time when this game first came out on console, the best looking version that you can get on this was on the Xbox One X, because that was the most powerful 8th generation console system that was out. And so this game was truly stunning to look at the time. Had really good HDR support, running at, I think it could push almost 4K or whatever, checker box or whatever, right, that they could do back then on the Xbox One X. Was running at 30 frames per second, but the level of detail in this game is truly incredible, and even to this day, some of the best that there's out there. I mean, everything from like the tracks you lay in the snow to like all the different like items in in the interiors, like buildings and all. It looks truly stunning, a real work of art. And I mean, I can't imagine this game was cheap to get it to this high level of detail, and it takes a while to develop. Hence why, we're still waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6. But it's just the level of immersion, the high detailed world really makes it feel like you're in the Wild West, and an incredible story. Arthur Morgan is just one of the coolest characters of all time. And it's super long too also. This game took me forever to beat. So if you want something that is really beefy and you want to just go back to the Wild West, there's no really other better game than this one here. I mean, me personally, I kind of prefer part 1 a little bit more, and it's just because I'm just a little bit more biased towards the story on that one. But as an overall game package, though, this one is just definitely a lot more of what the first one did, and truly incredible. And yeah, I mean, and there's moments in this game too also where the drama to it and all, and the acting and everything is truly top notch. And yeah, so just this is like a perfect example of like to what level of detail and creativity and creation and everything and all that video games can be. It's truly that good, and definitely some of the best that this medium has to offer. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an amazing game. But at my number 1 is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So also another multi-platform game, but definitely felt right at home on the Xbox One. And so The Witcher 3 is obviously the third game in this series. And so The Witcher takes, it's based off of these, I think, Polish dark fantasy novels. And they made them into video games. So with the first one coming out originally on PC only, and then part 2 PC, and also came out on the Xbox 360. And then we got this one here that was on everything, right? The Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. And this game is really amazing. Another game that took me forever to beat, kind of like Red Dead Redemption 2. But a part of it was just because I just loved inhabiting in this world. I loved just being lost in it and going out and doing crazy side missions and getting lost in this world. And this really highly detailed dark fantasy world. I mean, it looks truly stunning. And one thing that really made this game stand out is that the main mission, the main stories, it's pretty cool. But the side content that's in there and the side stories and everything are pretty much just as well done, if not better. And so meaning that there's just so much cool lore and story and gameplay sections and everything that you can explore in this open world game that it literally felt like it was alive. I mean, there was so much to do in it, and a lot of it is so much fun. And Geralt controls really well, as he has this two sword gameplay mechanics where one sword is for humans and like monsters, or I'm sorry, or like for wildlife, and then the silver sword is for like demons and such. And then the way you can use your different magic powers and all is just really cool. And again, right, if you want to be taken away on this dark fantasy adventure, The Witcher 3 is really amazing. Great acting, cool story, and yeah, just an overall amazing experience. And for me personally, probably I would say my favorite experience of the eighth generation. I mean, this is another game too also that when you look up like top best games of all time, The Witcher 3 tends to be up there pretty high. I mean, it really is that good. It's just an incredible game. It took me a little bit to get used to it because I'm not used to these kind of like games that are heavy onto crafting and things like that. But something about it though that really hooked me, and once it got its claws on me, like I said, I remember I just kept playing this game over and over and over, and it took me a while to beat it just because I just enjoyed inhabiting in this dark world. And yeah, just an incredible game. Absolutely love it, and definitely worth your time. But that's what I got for the Xbox One / 8th generation games. And let me know, though, if there's any other games there that you enjoy, as I'm always curious to see what other people are playing. But until then, till the next, have a good one.